What up, gamers? I'm Jason, and today on Dice and Dragons we have something a little bit different for you. We were supposed to have a review coming out this week, but Julie and the little guy are under the weather, so I'm bringing you some board game adjacent content. But don't worry, for those of you that are fans of the channel, it is based on one of our favorite games of all times, Descent: Legends of the Dark, published by Fantasy Flight Games, designed by Adam Sadler, Konieczka and Daniel Clark, based on the original design by Kevin Wilson. Now, Fantasy Flight Games has started publishing books in the world of Descent, and these feature some of the characters from the board games themselves. So we will be reviewing Doom of Fallowhearth. This is the first book based on Descent. Journeys in the Dark, sorry. I almost said Legends of the Dark, but that is the new game. Don't worry, I'll talk about how this book ties into that in this review. It is published by Aconyte Books, and it is written by Robbie Macniven. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of background story, just the basics, probably a little bit more than what you would get on the back of the book. After that, I will discuss just my thoughts on the writing style, what I enjoyed about the story, what I didn't enjoy, where I thought there could have been some improvements, and I'm going to try to stay away from spoilers and giving a full summary of the book. If you would like to see something like a full spoiler discussion, well, feel free to let me know down below in the comments. Now I'm going to just grab a quick drink, and I'm going to get into my thoughts on Doom of Fallowhearth. Well, sorry, I'm going to give you the setup and then my thoughts. So in this book, you're going to see the Borderland 4 reuniting. Now, for those that are fans of the game series, the board games, these are the characters from Labyrinth of Ruin. You're going to have Ulma, the dwarf alchemist. You have Durik, the orc pathfinder. You've got the legendary rogue, Logan Lashley, and their necromancer, Desra the Vile. Now, in Labyrinth of Ruin, these four heroes defeated Ariad and her horde of Araichura, the evil spiders. Hopefully I pronounced that right. Maybe it's Araichura. It's really hard to pronounce the way it's written. Arachyura. If anyone can correct me on that, once again, let me know down below in the comments. Now, sometime after the events of Labyrinth of Ruin, this band of adventurers that were close friends and tight-knit went their separate ways. Durik has been summoned to the Baroness of Forthyn. Now, for those of you that have been playing Legends of the Dark, this is the setting for that game. So you're going to be introduced to some of the characters that you will be meeting later on. For example, we will find out about Lady Catherine, the cousin of Bryn, who is one of the main characters in Legends of the Dark. So Durik has been summoned to Forthyn and is searching for Lady Catherine. In order to complete this task, he is bringing the band back together. So you have Logan Lashley, who journeys forth from Six-Man Hall, Ulma, who comes from wherever she is in the Dunwar Mountains, and, well, I'm not going to talk too much about Desra because that would really get into spoiler territory, but she does make an appearance in the book. Now, these characters haven't seen each other for a long time. They are joined by an advisor of the Baroness Adeline. You also have the captain of the guard, Cloyne, who is sent with them as they must journey up to Fallowhearth and investigate what's happened there, because the Lady Catherine has disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and there's a lot of bad stuff going on in the region. So this is the first time the characters have met in a long time, and we do get some great banter and interplay because, you know, they haven't seen each other in almost a decade. So that's all I really want to tell you about the story. I'm going to get into my thoughts on the writing. Overall, I enjoyed Robbie Macniven's writing. I found that the pacing was very well done. It's easy to read. Everything flows very well. His description of scenes is very concise and clear. I didn't have too much difficulty imagining the way the world looks and what is going on. I do have to say there is a scene later on when they venture into the forest. I wasn't the biggest fan as to how that was written. I found that that's where his description got to be a little clunky, and I had a hard time imagining the characters and what they were experiencing at that time. I don't think it was terrible, it just really wasn't my favorite scene, and I think it could have been clarified a little bit better if maybe the pacing had been slowed down. So this book is definitely designed to be a nice, light, fast, easy read, and while I did enjoy it, I have to say that the book really didn't draw me in as much as I would have liked it to. At this point in time, Julie and I have not played Labyrinth of Ruin. We however have used some of the characters in just playing the app version of Journeys in the Dark. So used to saying Legends of the Dark because that's the one that's actually set up still in the table. Hopefully we'll be getting that completed soon. But I just wasn't drawn in by the characters, and I think one of the reasons for that is we really don't get a lot of background history and backstory about these characters. Now, you can definitely look some of this stuff up online if you'd like. I know that Fantasy Flight Games has really been doing a great job of pushing the Terranoth lore and developing a lot of the world. For example, if you want to get the Realms of Terranoth book, you're going to get a ton of background about a lot of the players that you're going to be seeing here, such as the northern clans, the differences in the baronies, and exactly how everything works in the world of Terranoth. What I found really lacking was the backstories for these characters. And I think one of the reasons why I found this lacking is I'm a big fan of Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames, and this story is really about, the heroes coming out of retirement, getting back together for an important mission. And that story has been told a lot. And sometimes it works where you don't need to know a lot about the characters because you've seen them in other media. This may be a book that's further down the line, whereas this is really for a lot of people, especially those that are not necessarily fans of the board games, but may just be fans of fantasy literature. This is going to be your first introduction to them. And I'm citing Kings of the Wild for a specific reason because throughout that entire book, and I greatly enjoyed the book, we get a lot of backstory as to who these characters were, what their experiences were growing up, how they met each other, what their relationships were to each other, where they had some falling outs, why they had some falling outs, and why they may have not seen each other in a decade. And a lot of that is missing from this book. Well, you do get some nice callbacks to what happened in Sudania in Labyrinth of Ruin, and I thought that was very well done. You do also get some callbacks to potentially, the hardships these characters faced during their life. Desra being Desra the Vile, a necromancer whose art is frowned upon and in some cases even considered illegal, punishable by death. Durik being an orc and essentially being treated as an outcast in many ways. You also got some bit of background on Logan and Ulma and their own character pathos and what really drives them or where they've had their failures in life. I didn't get enough of their history, and they didn't feel like they were fully realized to me. Now that works in being a fan of the board game. I like the world of Terranoth. I like the story that it's telling me. I like the characters that are featured in it. I can also go and dive in and find out more information if I want to. I mean, I've got their character cards. I've got the lore books for Labyrinth of Ruin just on my shelf. And I think this is a real sticking point for me because Fantasy Flight Games and Asmodee in general is trying to enhance their brands, grow them beyond potentially just being board games. I mean, we've got a D&D movie coming, and we've seen games expand beyond just being board games. So it's clear that they want to do this with their properties, and Terranoth is a world that has a lot of lore and a lot of time invested in it. So it's definitely something that I can really get behind Fantasy Flight Games doing. But if this is the quality of book that they're going to be putting out, which is something that is fun, well written, easy to read, but is lacking a lot of what you need to, really pull someone into the world of Terranoth, it's not going to play well with readers that aren't fans of the board games. And I think the book is selling well. There are two others, and I just got the most recent one. I'm going to still read them because I'm a fan of this world. The setting, it is is a game that is in Julie and I's top 10 board games. We really enjoy Journeys in the Dark and Legends. Also, the way that this ties into Legends of the Dark and gives you some background to the location of Fallowhearth, which, minor spoiler for Legends of the Dark, is a place that you will be venturing to on a mission for Bryn during the game. Now, we actually haven't played the mission, so I can't spoil it for you. Just all I can tell you is you will be going there and seeing what has happened to the location since the events of this book, which I think is pretty cool. And I do like the fact that we get this book that sets that up, because I do feel like it's going to be a big part of the game that we're playing. Also, there is the Witch Necruel in Legends of the Dark, just to mention it. They feature heavily in the other book, The Shield of Dakan. So they're really doing a good job of expanding the world and tying it back into their games. So very cool. Like what they're doing, like what they're trying to do. I just really wanted more about Durik, Logan Lashley, Gezra, Ulma. I really wanted to have these characters feel alive, vibrant, really understand their backstory, which is something that I got in Kings of the Wild by Nicholas Eames. The band Saga getting back together really felt like the band getting back together. The reason why they broke up was quite clear. Their backstory was quite clear, and it was also a fun, snappy, quick read, something that I really just plowed through and had to get to the end. Whereas with this book, while I wanted to finish it, I did find myself just kind of getting ready for it to be over. Also, one of the things that I really strongly disliked about this tale is the investigation of Lady Catherine is very important, but the way that it ties into the ending of the book and some of the goings on in Upper Forthyn, I really disliked it. It'd make the characters, they didn't seem like themselves. They should have been able to figure out what was going on and where some of the threats were coming from earlier, and kind of had the wool pulled over their eyes, and I really didn't enjoy that. I thought that it just didn't really flow well, and also them looking into what happened with Lady Catherine and the way the story finally resolves, I felt that it was a little disconnected. I said disconnected before. It was a lot disconnected. I felt that there could have been some stronger ties to it that could have really brought the story together in a more cohesive manner, and I don't think that the book was necessarily fully plotted out and scripted out before it all was written. I felt that there was a clear direction in the second half of the book, in the first half, that didn't quite come through in the second half with where we end up and the events that occur. And I would have liked to have seen maybe some more connections. Now, it does tie together. There are some reasonings for it, so it's not like what brought them all to the barony doesn't get resolved in the end and doesn't have links to other goings-on in Fallowhearth. I just felt that it wasn't as strong as it could be, and I felt that the characters weren't, looking at things clearly, especially being great heroes. Now, this does get addressed at the end by one of the characters saying, they talk about the situation, how they got there, and what they should have potentially expected. So I do appreciate the fact that it's addressed. It just was a little bit of a disappointment for me. Now, I think I've talked enough about the book. I don't really want to give any more spoilers. I think I might have given away a little bit more than I would have liked, but hopefully it gives you an idea as to what to expect from this book. I'm going to give it my rating now. I give this a solid 6.5. It's an enjoyable book. It's well written overall. It's a good read. I just think that there's a lot of content missing, and unfortunately, I don't think this is the thing that's going to get someone to pick a book up off the shelf, read it, and be like, you know what, I gotta play the Scent, the board game. I want to get into Legends of the Dark. Maybe I'll try to find Journeys in the Dark and really dive into the world of Terranoth. I think it's good, but this is still primarily something for fans of the series and fans of the board games. Now, hopefully that changes up with some of the other books. I mean, this is the first one, and while it's an okay start, not a great start, I really would have liked the books to come, really shooting out of the gate. I think that there's a lot of potential here, and I think the stories are just going to get a lot better as we go further down the timeline. And also, there are going to be some different authors that are brought in as well. I mean, there are 2 by Robbie Macniven, and he really only does licensed work, so I think maybe that it could maybe be hindering the book a little bit here. I don't know. When I talk about Kings of the Wild, that's Nicholas Eames' own original storyline and setting, so he probably has a lot more control over what's in the book. And that's maybe working out well. I know for a fact it worked out very well for Kings of the Wild, but maybe that's something that Fantasy Flight Games needs to look into when it comes to taking these properties and developing them out further into this, new world that we're seeing of IPs and transmedia. So I think that's enough of my thoughts on Descent, Journeys in the Dark, the Doom of Fallowhearth. Now I'm going to remind you to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that YouTube will let you know when our next video is released. Also, down below in the video description, you'll find links to all of our social media feeds, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you'd like to see pictures of Julie and I playing Descent, Journeys in the Dark, there are plenty on those feeds. If you'd like to hear my thoughts, well, I don't really have pictures of my thoughts. I was trying to think about what I could do, but if you'd like to see some pictures of the books, because I'll make sure they get that up there, I'll take a picture of all 3 of the different novels so you can see what to expect. You can make sure to take a look on our social media feeds. And then also down below in the video description is a link to multizone.ca, a great Canadian game store. Click that link. You'll get 10% off your next purchase, and it's a great way for you to support the channel as a portion of that purchase is returned to us. So make sure to check them out. And then popping up in front of me are going to be links to some of our previously released videos. Over here will be our most recent release, and over here, since it ties in specifically to the game that I've got in front of me, will be our review of Descent, Journeys in the Dark. With that being said, don't forget, keep playing games and keep reading books.